Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Talking Triathlon, where it's in the name. We talk about triathlon. My name is Tim Ford. That man is James Bale. He is here ready to give us the inside scoop on all of the action from the Ironman, or Iron Women, Ironman Women's Ironman World Championships from Nice this week. That was more confusing than it needed to be. Jimbo, how you going, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. I'm still in France, having spent the weekend down in Nice. It was good, mate. It was a good weekend to be down there. I think there's a few points I think that I want to get to later in the pod, but for the minute, how are you doing?
I am good, mate. What is all is well here. I don't even know what to
Are
say,
you
to be
fully
honest.
recovered from your marathon now? Has all the aches and pains and tender bits gone away?
No, that's an interesting thing, probably a good thing to discuss. So you do the marathon, and I had the bad blisters during the run over, which again we'll talk about on a bonus episode, which we'll record next
I
week.
didn't need the unsolicited foot pictures, mate. I really didn't.
You
It
enjoy, I
made me
mean,
gag.
you normally like my foot pictures, mate. So, um, um, but it's been funny that yeah, like so what we're nearly 2 weeks out, and I've ran a half marathon last Friday. I fucking needed, sorry, I really needed to. I have to bit that one out. Um, and my legs were so sore during it. I went, I have like about 4K in. I thought I've made a huge mistake with this, but I sort of, like I said, I needed to do it for whatever reason. Uh, and I've done a bit of running, but like suddenly I'm getting all these weird, like my knees started hurting weirdly, and then my hamstring insertion points hurting. Like yesterday when I was swimming, I had to cut my swim short because every time I tumble turn and push off the wall, my bloody hamstring insertion would flare up. And like on the bike yesterday, my other knee started hurting, and I'm like, was like my body just holding itself together through the marathon, and then I had the foot pain. And now that I'm sort of actually recovering, my body's like, well, this is fucked. This is fucked. This is
Yeah, yeah.
fucked.
Your body's gone on a prioritization of pain, mate, and you're slowly slinking your way through it as bits of you recover.
It's been funny to me about how many people have been like shocked by my result. And like people are like, I can't believe you went that well. I'm a good athlete, man. Like I know I haven't had a good race in a while, but I train a lot. Like I work hard. But no, the body seems to be okay. I'm gonna again. I'm back to training. I've had a slightly ad hoc week this week, just like I said, little bits and pieces like that. But no, yeah, fully recovered. Getting ready for World Championships in December. That's my main focus now. I'm going to do a few little events. Might do a half marathon next month. I've got Melbourne 70.3, and I was, yeah, maybe one other little something before champs. So, yeah, no, good, excited for it. Yeah, ready. How about you, mate? I've seen you been taking your
Yeah,
bike.
our special guest this week might also be joining you at Melbourne 70.3
She's
before the 70.3 Worlds.
she's done well there before, so I wouldn't be surprised to see her.
Yeah,
I think there's going to be a
yeah.
few athletes there, to be honest. I think looking at the timing of everything, I know a lot of athletes are sort of heading down south. I think we could see a semi-decent field, not semi. I think we could see a good field, not that we haven't in the past. It's an interesting little period of racing because I've been talking to a few different athletes, right? So you've got Noosa Triathlon, what is it? Let's say the 7th of November. I can't remember the exact. 1 week later, you've got Melbourne 70.3. And then like 2 weeks later than that, you've got Ironman Western Australia 70.3, which is the last race of the second last race of the Pro Series. And then 2 weeks later, you got 70.3 Worlds. So like,
It's a solid block, isn't it?
if you're like if that 70.3 World Champs is really one of your focuses and you wanted to sort of come down and get used to the time and get some racing and it's almost like perfectly laid out for athletes. So uh yeah, yeah, I'm looking forward to World Champs though. I've really, I bloody qualified in 2019, so it's been literally 5 years.
I
Since
keep forgetting you're going to race it because it's been this sort of never-ending loop of you saying you're going to go and race 70.3 Worlds in Taupo
I know.
that I've kind of sort of just lost that from my brain that it's ever going to happen.
I know. I'm even getting I'm getting a prototype tri suit that I'll be using that only a few other handful of select pros will get access to for the race. I'm taking it serious, mate. So I'm
That
so,
that'll save you half a second at least, I reckon.
I find it so funny, right? Because so I've been working on this project with Mike Phillips and Joe Skipper for Purpose, and that's the tri suit that I'm getting. But like we've had a lot of the discussions, and obviously for like Joe and Mike and the other pro, Max Stapley, and the other pros they work with, like, it actually really makes a difference because at those higher speeds, like the equipment, the fabric, the pattern, the panels, everything really changes. And they keep saying, but basically at about under 42 kilometers an hour, or 40K an hour, or whatever, it doesn't really make that big a difference. And we all sort of chuckle, like, because I'm like, I'll probably average 40-ish K an hour on that
Mm.
course. I'd be happy with 40K an hour. Um, I'm just doing it because I can. But like the way that so many other amateurs who don't ride at but they
Yeah.
really fuss
Oh,
over
they'll
the.
sell it. They'll sell a lot of these things, I'm sure.
I love it. But again, it's
Yeah.
just like the more you sort of understand the actually, like, there's been wind tunnel testing and there's been all this stuff. And the more you understand it, the more I'm like, oh, so all of us age groupers are just carrying on for no good reason. Like
Oh,
it,
totally. I mean, there are things that I've learned over the years, years ago, that like there's no point in me having an expensive wetsuit. I need a wetsuit with loads of fucking buoyancy in it and just allow me to use my arms and make my rear end float so I can go fast. It doesn't matter if I take 3 to 4 extra seconds in transition to take it off because I'll have saved a lot of time. If I get myself a really thin, super slippery wetsuit, I don't fucking go anywhere. I
mm,
just sink. But you'll see people just avoiding the logic of this and thinking, well, it's the really expensive one. I need it.
I love it though. I also though. I mean, a complete. The PlayStation 5 Pro got announced yesterday. Completely excessive, completely pointless. I still bought it. Like, so I'm also very guilty of just like, if it's the best, I want it. But yeah, no. So that's Taupo. But then other than that, how about you, mate? Like, you obviously
Yeah,
touched
not
on.
too bad. Not too bad. I've been, like I said, I've been Nice this weekend. We'll get to the race in a bit, but yeah, what a stunning place to spend time, despite the amount of time I spend in France and having a place just outside of Lyon. I have never been to Nice before, and it
Oh
was really
wow,
quite, it was good fun getting down there. Didn't arrive till 1 o'clock in the morning on the Saturday because the traffic was a bit brutal. Um, but this got up at 8 o'clock Saturday morning, having had about 5 hours sleep, and took my bike out of Nice past Monaco and then up Le Madone, the big climb where the track have named all their bikes after. And then it's about once you go to the top of that climb, it's a 13K climb. Get to the top of that, it's about a 20K descent back into Nice. And that was really good fun, mate. Really good fun.
I assumed that the descents in these are a lot of fun. Every time I did one, I was trying to keep up with fucking Joe Skipper, and he was a madman. So I think I don't know how much you know of the course, but there is that descent probably halfway through the course before you sort of climb up again for the big descent down to Nice. And that is, to me, possibly the best descent I've ever done in my entire life because it is a cliff face. Like you descend and there's a little wall that's maybe, I don't know, 70 centimeters high and it's a sheer drop. But descending down there was, yeah, so incredible. Like the riding down there
Trying to
is,
hold on to the back of Skip's wheel. I'm
I
sure
think,
you were
I
doing
think
a thorough
I think
risk
he,
assessment on your way down, weren't you?
I think he dropped me at that point, to be honest. I'm pretty sure I think that's when I was trying to catch up with him and Matt Hansen. But no, it's wonderful place. I think I know. I guess we can probably just transition into it a little bit because obviously you got Ellie Salthouse to talk about the actual race, but we can talk a little bit about it now or quickly. Patreon.com/talking triathlon, all that stuff. Bonus episode, WhatsApp group was great. It was going off during the race. It's the best way to support the podcast. Next month, all the money we raise is going to James's fundraiser for his London Marathon. Uh, yeah, I think that we've seen this year a lot of the brands, a lot of the industry around the sport really embrace Nice a lot more than last year. Last year seemed to be a bit of a test bed, and from an outsider's point of view, watching it, it really did sort of seem to me that the sport is embracing Nice, and because
Yeah.
we've said it's a great venue for a world championships.
It really is. And there was a from what you told me last year, because you were there last year for the men's and I wasn't. I was there this year for the women's and you weren't. But from what you told me last year compared to what I saw on the ground this year, there was quite a bit more activation and activity from the brands, and there was a bigger expo, and there was quite a bit to wander around, to be honest, quite a bit going on. Um, it's the first time since they've split the World Championships that I've actually been at either of the events. Since they've done the splitting, I haven't been managed to make it to World Champs. This is the first one I've been at. And I think that the point for me where it really sunk in how warranted and worthwhile it is, specifically for the women, I think, to have their own day. was when I saw um, Laura Philipp and Kat Matthews come into T2 on the bike, both go through that transition and then run out onto the run course. And it was just the visuals of seeing the two lead women running into an empty run course.
Mm.
And it was kind of like, it really summarized for me, well, this is their day and they're out. They're the two leaders of this race, leading their world championships, out fighting on an empty course to see, and that would slowly fill up as people trickled in. But just seeing them two run out onto that run course on their own, I think it really highlighted how important that was.
Now, because you were the man on the ground, and I would love to get your opinion on it, because look, for reasons that we don't need to talk about on the podcast, I didn't really watch that much of the race over the weekend. But when I did sort of watch it, the thing I noticed, I'm not trying to be a negative Nancy or anything here, but it did look to me like that the spectators, there weren't a lot of spectators on course. Uh, on the ground, what was it like? Like, what did you think that was it busy? Was there a lot of people around? Like, what was it actually like in terms of
Yeah,
being a spectator?
I walked down quite early to get to the swim course. I had like the media VIP thing, but I didn't bother with that viewing area because I we had some patrons on the ground. I wanted to go and sit with them and just chat and just be normal. So I sat on the wall overlooking the swim at the back. And to be honest, it was fairly packed, mate. You had to queue. I think they were being very cautious with security. I think Nice has had some problems in the past
Yep.
with incidents, and so they're being very tight on security to get in and out of even the public viewing area. You had to queue and
Yeah,
have your
yeah.
bag searched and all that. And it was fairly packed. You had to, you were five or six deep. I managed to get a place on the wall, so there was no one in front of me, which was good. And then I can't talk to the bike ride very well because I didn't go out onto the bike course. I kind of went and had some lunch and kept an eye on the race using my phone. I had a couple of beers and just kept an eye on the race and waited for them to come in to T2. And again, I think it got busier on course as it became more age group focused because you had supporters of their athletes on course. It was a little quiet to begin with, I think, when the first few pros were racing on the run course, but as the day unfolded, it got busier and busier. And by the time it was late afternoon, the pros were wrapping up. It was fairly atmospheric out there. There was,
Awesome.
you
Okay.
couldn't get into the finishing chute because everybody was in there. It was full up. Um, and so I had to position myself probably about 800 meters down from the finishing chute on the run course. And I had some friends racing from home. So I was just shouting at them as they went by.
You should have gone in because the VIP area runs the whole length of the finish thing on one side.
Yeah,
So,
I just wasn't feeling that I wanted to I
fair
wanted to
enough.
catch
Yeah.
catch my friends as they did their loops rather than sit in the VIP area and wait by the finish chute.
That's funny. I think last year when I was there, didn't go in. I think I was there for the swim start and I didn't touch it again until the end. But yeah, no, it's good to know because again, I was a bit, I guess, concerned maybe that it wasn't getting, I guess, the same. Because one of the things I remember, I can't remember which pro it was. There was a female, it might have been Sky Monch, it might have been Nikki Bartlett. I can't remember who it was saying last year that it's actually like make sure like the men need to support this race as much as the women do because it's, about, when the women come to Nice, please support it the way the women have supported when the men were there. And I remember that when I sort of turned it on, I went, oh God, it looks a bit quiet. So it's great to hear that it actually was a lot more atmospheric and busy because I really want this Nice thing to work for me because I love it as a
Mm.
venue. And again, as we saw, it is a world championship course. Bikes on course, maybe not such a world championship thing. Sorry, cars on
And
course,
it's
maybe not such a world championship thing, but the course
it's
is tough, man.
it is tough, and it is like you say, you kind of in your head you think, oh, this is a one-off, but it's not. Hopefully, it's going to bed in and be a repeating thing. Because in my brain, I'm like, oh well, that was an experience, and for some reason, part of my subconscious thinks, well, you won't see that again. But then I was talking to Rasmus earlier today, and I'm like, oh, I'll be down in Nice next year to watch you race, mate.
Mm.
And it that kind of brought it home a little bit that if we get this repeating cycle, then every year or so, or every other year, whenever the opportunity arises, you're going to get to go down to Nice, which is a very easy place to get to. Unfortunately, my accommodation cancelled on me 2 days
You said
before I
this.
was meant to arrive, which was a right bastard. So I ended up in some poxy little studio apartment thing. And then the morning I was leaving, it was like a thunderstorm and the heavens opened for like the 3 hours I was trying to pack my car. So it was like I'd got in a swimming pool by the time I actually got into the car and drove away.
Yeah, well, look, let's drop in. So you sat down with Ellie Salthouse, Australian pro triathlete, because you wanted to get that, I guess, inside view or like a real, analytical eye over, what happened in Nice. So let's drop in an interview with you chatting with Ellie Salthouse, and we'll come back and I'll give you a couple of thoughts after we're back.
And as me and Tim have probably just said, because we haven't recorded it quite yet at the time of sitting down to do this interview, we're joined by superstar triathlete Ellie Salthouse. How you doing, Ellie?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. I'm not too bad. I'm slightly fatigued from the weekend in Nice. We were just discussing that, but supporting is the hardest job, I think.
Yeah, agreed. I would much rather be out in course than supporting. So good on you, especially for a full distance. I've never had to support one of those as of yet. So I think it'll be harder than doing the actual race.
So talking about racing, how is life with you at the moment? What's going on in your world?
So I just returned from a little overseas stint as well. I raced 70.3 ZLMC, and
Yeah.
then the following week I raced Challenge Beijing, which was an Olympic distance event. And then I just came back home to Australia. I took like a week, a kind of easier week, and then just adjust back to the time zone, get settled in, and now we're back into the swing of training and yeah, preparing for World Champs mid-December. So that'll be the next big focus, with potentially Noosa or 70.3 Melbourne thrown in there just as kind of a
Okay.
hit out with 5 or 6 weeks left to go, just to make sure the prep is on track and yeah, see how things are tracking.
You've had quite a packed season so far, eh? What are we talking? One, two, three, four, five 70.3s so far. Throw in Singapore T100, and then you've got
Yeah.
the World Champs coming up. It's packed but consistent. Your results are looking very steady.
Yeah, I'm really happy. So I've had two firsts, a second, a third, and two fourths so far this year. So yeah, no, pretty happy with how things are going. We decided that we would kind of front load this year and have the first half pretty heavy, do mostly pro series races, just 70.3, obviously. And then we were lucky enough to get a start in Singapore, so we went there. And then, yeah, we wanted to have a nice big 12-week block leading into Worlds with no interruptions or racing, unless we felt the need to do so. So that's kind of just started. We've just hit 12 weeks last Saturday. So I'm in the thick of the block now. So yeah, and then we might look at doing, as I said, Melbourne just to see that everything's on track. But other than that, we'll be headed to New Zealand on the 1st of December.
And how excited are you to be racing that race in New Zealand?
Yeah, I can't wait. I feel like I've been so patient at every World Championship event, and something just hasn't quite like fallen into place for me. Last year, I got two drafting penalties. The year
Oof.
before, I just had bad luck at every World Champs so far. So, I think it's about time that the stars aligned and my hard work just came to fruition on the race course. So I think this is the year.
This is the one. And it's going to be a beautiful race out there, isn't it?
Yeah, beautiful race, so close to home as well. So I've just got a
Mm.
3 hour flight. It's only a couple hour time difference as well. So I think I'll easily get onto that, easily be able to adjust. I've raced there before, so I know the location, I know the good training spots. So I feel like I'll be nice and comfortable. And I always race really well when I feel adapted and feel comfortable in a location. So yeah, I think this is going to be my year.
Nice. That's what we like to hear. So are you
Yeah.
going out early? I mean, because there's not much of a difference. You don't suppose you have to go out weeks in advance, really, do you? Are you gonna rock up like a week before and do some training or 2 weeks before?
Yeah, we'll go 2 weeks out. So 2 weeks before we'll head out there, just get the lay of the land, kind of, yeah, just get used to the bike course and things like that. I like to get super familiar with the bike and the run courses just so I know exactly what to expect, and then we can kind of adapt our race plan around the exact course. We like to have a really detailed plan of the course, the turns, what's going to happen, where I'm going to put down power, things like that. So if we go well enough in advance, the better our plan can be come race day.
Yeah, too right. Too right. I mean, that's what you want in a race like this, isn't it? It's going to be stunning. The swim's going to be beautiful and calm, hopefully. But then, I mean, the road conditions, I hear, I've never raced that race. I'm here, the road conditions aren't the best.
Yeah, I mean,
What do you do?
Australia
What
and
do you do to try and sort of mitigate that?
yeah, Australia and New Zealand are kind of renowned for having that unsealed chip seal surface on the road. So I'm kind of used to it riding here. Actually, we have a lot of it as well, and it's not the most comfortable ride. But I'm used to it. We just run a slightly lower tire pressure.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, some people will adjust the tire thickness and maybe ride a slightly wider tire, but for us, it's pretty standard. We're used to those conditions. So yeah, I won't do too much differently on the bike. But yeah, as you said, the swim will be stunning. Lake Taupo is absolutely beautiful. Could be really chilly at that time of year. So most likely a wetsuit swim, which I prefer non-wetsuit just because I'm one of the better swimmers, and so it does separate the field a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, same for everybody. I don't mind a wetsuit swim. And then obviously the race will be absolutely stunning the whole day, so we have to keep focused.
Keep focused. And is it after the Worlds that you'll start thinking about next season, or is that something you've already started planning?
Yeah, we've done a little bit of planning, at least the first couple months. I guess coming from Australia, you have to spend most of the year overseas to be able to follow the race season. So we kind of like to plan a little far in advance so that we can then um, we know exactly where we're going to be at what
Hmm.
times and when we plan our like return to America for the US summer. So we'll probably end up heading off from here end of April. And then that's when my international season will kick off. I'll most likely start my year with the Pro Series race in Geelong, the 70.3.
Yep.
So yeah, that'll be the start of my Aussie season and my season. And then, yeah, we'll plan the rest of the year once all the calendar is finalized. But yeah, we've started just the vague picture.
Do you enjoy the travel and being away from Australia as much as you have to be? Because, as you say, Australia is, to really maximize the season, you're going to spend a chunk of it in Europe, a chunk of it in America. Do you enjoy that element of it?
Yeah, I mean, I love to travel. I love seeing new places, racing new races. And I mean, some of the international races are some of my favorites. So I love going back year after year. The only thing I don't love is the actual like travel, like traveling on planes and things like that. Like I don't fly that well. I don't get sleep. So it's not like the most enjoyable experience for me. And I'm not a big fan of airports. So I like the destination. I just don't love the part where you're getting there. So.
Yeah, fair enough. And
But yeah.
do you have like a permanent base in Europe or a permanent base in America?
Yeah, so we've actually the last couple of years we've been spending the US summer in St. George, Utah.
Oh yeah.
We really like it
Love, nice
there.
place.
Yeah, it's stunning. We have some great friends. They obviously have the North American Championship there every year as well, so it falls really nicely in the calendar. And yeah, I mean, training there is great as well in the weather. So yeah, we usually spend about 3 months there, and then another 3 or 4 months will literally just be on the road full time. Maybe a small stint in Europe here or there. But yeah, we just pretty much follow the race season after that.
I found St. George really welcoming as a community
Yeah.
and welcoming to the endurance community and the athletes. I was over there for the when they had the delayed Ironman World Championships in 2022, 21, 22, I can't remember. But it was a really welcoming environment.
Yeah, I mean, they love triathletes, athletes in general, and they're so friendly and everyone seems to be fit and healthy. So it makes like a really nice environment to be around. It's really motivating when there's so many like-minded people. The facilities are incredible as well. So yeah, it makes it really easy to train there, and you don't have to travel too far to get to the pool and to the grocery store. Everything's within kind of 10 minutes. It's quite a small place. But yeah, I mean, super respectful of cyclists too, which is really important to find in a training base.
Yeah, too right. Too right. So talking about places and world championships and training bases, what did you think of Nice? How did you watch the race? Let's start there.
Yeah, I mean, I watched as much as I could. It started at 3 p.m. for us here and went into the late hours of the day. Just before midnight, I think Laura crossed the line. So I actually watched the beginning, most of the bike. I did have to get some training done. So intermittently, I came back and forth and then watched the run. I wasn't planning on watching the end because it was so late, but I just couldn't stop watching. So I'm glad I did though. But yeah, very, very impressive race from Laura. I'm so happy she won. She was my pick from the start. So yeah, to see all her hard work and her planning this season come to fruition and just have a magical day was, yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, let's start with the swim. It kind of ripped things apart a little bit. There were some gaps coming out the water. What did you think of
Yeah.
the way that shook out?
I was really surprised with the swim, to be honest, because you had some big hitters in there, despite Lucy not starting. There was the likes of Lauren Brandon, the Linskus. Yeah, I think I don't know. I was surprised that they didn't play to their strengths and really push that pace on the swim, knowing that you had the likes of Annie Howe, Laura Philipp coming from behind. So I don't know. I've never raced an Ironman, so I can't. I'm no expert on this, but
Well,
for me,
we've brought you in as our expert this week,
yeah.
Ellie. So,
Oh, great. Uh-oh,
own that
I'm
mantle.
unqualified for this. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like if I were those girls, I would have taken a huge risk and really tried to push the swim pace to prevent the likes of Chelsea getting on the back of that front group, which she did. We all know Chelsea can ride and run, particularly run. So you'd want to get her out of that front group as much as possible. And the best way to do that would be the swim. And you want to obviously make that gap between the likes of Annie Haug and Laura Philipp as big as possible. So if your strength is swimming, I think you have to use it. So I was surprised to see such a big front group, and I was really surprised to see Marjolaine and Chelsea in that front group, especially.
Yeah, it was. I was as well. I mean, I was there on the ground, as you know, and looking at the swim start. It was quite a choppy day. It wasn't pan flat water out there, and I was expecting those, like you say, those big hitters to really maximize that and make those that aren't quite as comfortable in the open water suffer a bit more than they did. But to see that big group come out together and to be everybody within spitting distance of each other was a bit of a surprise. And then the bike kind of decimated the field, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we always knew that it was going to be quite spread out with that type of course. I mean, when you have that much climbing and that much descending, I mean, it is unlikely that you're going to have really, really big groups together. So yeah, I mean, having a spread out race wasn't surprising on the bike. The thing that surprised me was Marjolaine. I think she raced out of her skin. Unbelievable race for her. To come from her misfortunes earlier this year and illness and injury and everything else, yeah, to have that kind of performance on a home race with all that pressure, I think yeah, I think aside from Laura, she was probably the most impressive race of the day. So yeah, to have her riding off the front for majority of the bike was extremely impressive. But then also the likes of Laura sticking to her plan, not taking any unwarranted risks. I think that was really impressive in itself. And that just, goes to show the wisdom and experience that she has over that distance. Yeah, and I think it really showed the girls that had been to the course before and had spent some time on the course and were able to really use the course to their advantage and, go hard on the hills and attack the descents. And I think, as I said earlier, we like to go to races quite far in advance so that we can really know every inch of the course. And I think that pays dividends, particularly on a course like that, when you know every inch and, every turn that's coming, and you can plan for that accordingly. So, yeah, I think the bike course was really solid and there were some amazing rides. Obviously, Laura and then Kat's descending was super impressive. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, Marjolaine Pierre, she'd obviously spent a lot of time getting to know those roads, getting to know that location, raced on it, and watching her do what she did at the front of that bike was awesome. And then with
Mhm.
Laura Philipp starting 4 minutes back off the bike, easing her way up to the front of the group, taking second position off Cat Matthews, and then kind of this seesaw battle with those two throughout the bike, culminating in them coming off the bike together, shoulder to shoulder. I think it was really unfortunate for Annie Haug to go out of the bike, out of the race entirely so early. I think, well, how far was she in? It must have been 200 meters she got out of transition before her tire went. I think it was a full tire blowout rather than needing to just change the inner tube, and
Yeah.
it was pretty obvious it was over her for her from the moment that happened. But
Yeah.
watching Laura and Kat fight at the front of that race, what point for you during the race did it become clear it was a battle between those two for the win?
Um, I think actually right from the beginning when the gap was so marginal to Laura Philipp in relation to previous races, I kind of knew that, okay, if Laura can do all the small things and avoid any uh, misfortune out there, I think it's her day because she just races with such a level head and never races on emotion. I think that's a huge strength for her in that she sticks exactly to her plan. So once she found the front, and then obviously Kat, I mean, Kat's a racer. She's a fighter. She would never just, let Laura Philipp go without a fight. So as soon as both of those two reached the front, it was kind of a question of how far they could get out the front and how far they could extend their lead. And then once they got more than, well, around 10 minutes on Chelsea, I mean, that would have been a huge ask for Chelsea to
Mm.
run 10 minutes into the likes of Laura Philipp, who we know is an incredible runner as well. So, yeah, once those two found the front and then extended their lead, yeah, it was kind of game over for everybody else.
Yeah, watching them come off I saw them come into T2. I wasn't out on the bike course. I hung around in Nice, near this kind of race village most of the day. Watching them come in, they were shoulder to shoulder as they got off that bike, and then they ran out of T2 onto the run course. It was it was kind of that first lap where Laura solidified her advantage over Kat and started to draw off. I saw Kat go by as she came back in off that first lap, and her form didn't look quite as substantial or as strong as you normally would see from her when she's running. And Laura just looked incredible. And then that gap just started to draw out. What do you
Yeah,
think? No, go ahead.
I think right from the start, you could see how calculated Laura was. Like she
Mm,
kept looking at her watch. She wasn't ever tempted to, go in front of Kat and, run excessively quick just to drop her or anything in that first kind of lap. She was calculated. She stuck to her paces. You watch her go through all of the aid stations. She was grabbing all the correct nutrition, everything she needed. Very, very calculated. And she would know from past experience that Kat loves to go out really hard from the gun. So she would keep that in mind, and I'm sure she was expecting that. But she would have known just to stick to her plan and just stick to her paces, and not let kind of the atmosphere and the emotion get the better of her. So yeah, that was impressive in itself as well.
And she didn't seem to falter, did she? We
Mm-mm.
watched Kat have moments when she was running where she was walking. She seemed to have some cramps. There were moments where she faltered slightly, but Laura just seemed to maintain an incredibly consistent pace all the way through that marathon.
Yeah, and the best thing about Laura is I think she has an incredibly efficient run style. So she knows that's her leg, her discipline, and she would have known once she got onto that run, she just has to fall into a really nice rhythm and do what she does best. And yeah, super efficient and just focus on her plan. And she always looks incredible running, so it's hard to tell how she's feeling, but you could tell she was working hard just from the look on her face and the amount that she was breathing. But I think that, yeah, I think she knew that if she was going to become a world champion, she also needed to take some risks. So, I mean, that was one of I think her third fastest marathon off the bike ever.
Yeah,
So
2:44:59.
yeah, so off a bike course like that, that's incredible. And she would have known that she was probably going to have a career best run that day to become world champion, and nothing less would have got her there. So yeah, she would have been ready for that and mentally prepared.
So at the end, we saw Laura Philipp cross the line in first place, Kat Matthews nigh on 7 minutes back in second, and Chelsea Sodaro even further back in third place. Then it was Marjolaine Pierre and Nikki Bartlett rounding out the top five. Were you surprised by the level of gaps we saw between the top five and then even further deeper down into the field?
Um, Not surprised. Like I kind of thought it would be spread out just given the bike course, but I was surprised that the gap seemed to open more and more on the run, which probably indicated that there were some athletes who overbiked, some athletes who maybe weren't expecting the bike to be as difficult as it was. Um, but yeah, I think there were also some very, very impressive runs that we maybe weren't expecting. We probably wouldn't have expected Marjolaine to be there. And although she didn't have one of the fastest runs, she was able to hold her pace and hold on at, I think it was like 4:22 pace for the overall marathon, which for her, her second ever Ironman is incredible on that course.
That's like an interval pace for me. That just makes it
Yeah.
just makes me shudder.
So I think, yeah, I think there were people that we probably weren't expecting. But yeah, the large gaps aren't really a surprise on a course like that. But yeah, watching them open on the run instead of the bike is probably the most surprising part.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think this is, am I interested to know whether you validate my own opinion here? Do you think there were some athletes who pushed harder than they expected on the bike and then had to sort of pay the piper on the run because of the state of that course and the elevation profile?
Yeah, I think a couple things play into that. One, it's a world championship, so people are going to get excited, people are going to feel good and at some points and then not feel as good at other points. So there's going to be like, overexcited. And then I also think that unless you've spent a lot of time on a course like that and seen every single inch of it and been able to train on it for like weeks, if not months ahead of the race, it is really, really hard to gauge your power or how you're going to feel or how you're going to fuel, things like that. So I think all of that comes into that kind of thing. But yeah, at the end of the day, a world championship, people are really excited. And I think some people overbike and then some people may have even underbiked just because they were unsure of how it would go or they were a little bit scared of a course like that. So yeah, a couple things. But yeah, I think we saw a few people probably bike harder than they should have and then definitely pay dividends on the run.
How would you approach a race like this?
We'll probably have to start by doing an Ironman. But I think for me, like I would definitely want to be in the front group on the swim. I would push that pretty hard because I know that's one of the areas I can get a gap on some of the faster runners. So I'd push the swim pace a little bit. And I think on the bike, I love descending and I consider myself a pretty good descender. So I would definitely use that as, an area that I could definitely make up some ground, if not create a gap. And I would push the uphills for sure, but I think calculated. So I
Mm.
would probably go out maybe 2 or 3 months before the race and I would just be riding those hills and just seeing what power is maintainable. And then yeah, train at that and practice, areas where you can push the pace, areas where you can settle in, where you can take your nutrition, things like that, and just form a really good plan. And then I think the run, like I think that would be the hardest part. That's probably the hardest part for me to guess how I would feel running a marathon off of
Yeah.
180 count bike. But I think, yeah, part of me wants to say that I would try a negative split, so settle into like a little bit of a slower pace for the first half and then try and like bring it home a little stronger for the second half. But I don't know. I don't know if that's possible in a marathon. I don't know how I would feel going into the second half of that. So yeah, I would probably just try and find a relaxed pace, but all those girls train at their marathon pace, I'm sure, a lot. So they would all have a target pace that they want to hit. So provided you do your you execute your plan properly on the bike, then that should be achievable if that's what you've trained for.
Who do you think, have you ever run a marathon just out of interest at all?
No,
No, no. Okay. Well, it's
never.
ah more to come
That's
then,
why
eh?
I say I'm totally unqualified to be talking on this topic. So
Oh,
I'm
you
sorry if I offend
no,
anyone or just
you're our expert.
make
We love it.
guesses about this distance, but I'm just trying to do my best.
Yeah. Um, yeah, you'd negative split a marathon. Easy, easy,
Yeah.
easy. There you go. No worries.
Right.
What were the biggest surprises you think you see in that finishing list? Are there anybody I mean, Marjolaine Pierre for me, just remarkable. And I also love how unmistakable she is on course. It's just so easy to cheer for her. Um,
Yeah.
is there any
Yeah.
what are the biggest surprises you can see in that list?
For me, Marjolaine number one was probably the race of her life. So that was the biggest surprise for me. Especially most impressive was because it was a hometown race for her. So she would have had so much pressure on her and she would have felt that. So to come through in a high pressure environment on her second ever Ironman after the year that she's had is just super impressive.
Remarkable, eh?
But also, Nikki Bartlett in fifth was super impressive as well. Like, I know she's been having some recent successes over the half distance. She's been having some really, really solid run splits, especially. But then to see her run through a lot of the field over the marathon, yeah, super impressive. I did not pick her to be up in the top five. So, yeah, I was very pleasantly surprised to see her in fifth, and I think that was a career best race for her as well.
What does a career best result do in the mind of a pro athlete? What does that bring to the party when you have that moment where you're like, oh, I've gone better than I thought I was going to do. I've gone better than I think I ever have. What does that do to help you move forward?
Well, more than just a career best race, I think having a career best race at the most high pressure race of the year is probably the thing that really, really mentally sends you like leaps and bounds ahead. I think having that kind of race at a world championship event, it's like, okay, well, I can do this. Like now that I've got a top five result, like what's stopping me from getting on the podium next time?
Yeah.
And it just makes you really hungry and it gives you this fire for more. And you just want to, work harder and harder and be better. And you've tasted success. It's like it's right there now. Before that, it may have been, okay, if I finish top 10, that would be a great result, but now you're literally right there, like you can grab it. So it makes you, yeah, it makes you start believing. I think that's the biggest thing. It's like, okay, maybe I can do it. Like you may before the race, maybe you were thinking, okay, maybe, but now you're like, okay, I know I can do it now, so
Is it
let's do it.
the absolute defeat of imposter syndrome type of thing?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think the confidence above all is probably the thing that would definitely have, yeah, gained from that.
And what do you think? Just I haven't spoken to you on this topic, but with the World Championships now being split between Kona and Nice and alternating between the men's and the women's fields, what do you think? Firstly, do you like that idea? And secondly, do you think that this field we'd have seen these kind of results, or do you think we're going to see totally different types of results between Kona and Nice?
Yeah, I mean, I like it for the pros, but I have heard a lot of arguments against it for the age groupers, which I do agree with, because for the age groupers, for instance, if you have a couple or a family member who qualifies for one and the other one qualifies for the other, it is difficult for those families to be able to get, two international trips, not only financially, but then take time off work and train for that. So I think it is quite hard for those families. So for the age groupers, it is a little difficult to have the two world championship events, especially two different months, different times of the year. But for the pros, I really like it because it's two almost opposite races. So you've got the wetsuit swim in Nice, the extreme conditions of Kona. You've got the super hilly bike course in Nice. You've got I don't want to say flat course in Kona, but rolling course in Kona. But the biggest thing about Kona is the heat and humidity and the extreme elements that come with it. Whereas I feel like Nice, the temperature is very temperate. That's not something you would typically have to factor in at that time of year. Like we saw it was about 22 degrees on the weekend, but the course is extreme. You've got the descending, ascending, you've got everything in there that Kona doesn't have. So you see a different set of athletes shine in that environment, and it plays to the different strengths of athletes. So I think you see a completely different set of athletes having successful days, which I really like. I like that it moves so that you see, more athletes shine. Yeah.
Yeah, so do I. I agree with you. Agree with you wholeheartedly.
Mm.
I love the change and also the accessibility from a spectating point of view. There are lots of people in Europe who'd love to go and watch the World Championships and now can because Nice is a very accessible place, much more accessible
Exactly.
than Kona is. So
Yeah.
from uh from that, I'm going to ask you a question you've probably asked many, many, many times. You've referenced throughout this interview that you haven't done an Ironman. Is that something in your future, or are you kind of staying at the 70.3 T100 distance? Right now, you're ranked seven. You're 19th in the PTO rankings. You're one of the best 70.3 athletes on the planet. Do you intend to go up to that longer distance?
You know, up until this year, I always said never. I would never do a full. But I guess with the Pro Series, it is making it a little more tempting to want to do one. And to
Bef
see
so
kind of,
before you get that full answer, why was that? Why was that never? Why would that never have always have been your answer?
well, I think I am, and I was just enjoying the 70.3 distance so much. And I really like that the 70.3 distance still has a lot of tactics, and it's still a bit more uh, less about nutrition and all those kind of things and more about racing. Whereas I feel like the long distance, you've got to nail so many other elements just to have a successful day. So there's more to it than just racing. And I'm such a racer in that I like the speed. I like being able to change my plan depending on who's around me in the moment. But Ironman is just such about following your plan to the T. And I'm not very good at being disciplined. So for me, I don't know, maybe I would struggle to stick to a plan for 9 hours, but we will see. Yeah, so I don't know if I'll consider one for next year, but maybe 2026, I might try one and see what it's all about, see if I like it,
And
see if it
is
changes
that
my
simply
mind.
because of the Pro Series has come along and you want to
Um,
be part of that ecosystem?
yeah, I think eventually, like right now, I really love the half and I love the T100 distance. I think I still have a good amount of speed in me that I can be successful over both those distances. Um, but the longer stuff, I enjoy the longer stuff. So yeah, it is tempting, especially now that the Pro Series is around, and that very much favors the full distance. So without doing a full distance, you can't be successful in that. So if that's going to be around for a number more years while I'm racing, then I want to be successful at that, and I want to be a part of it, and I want to have a chance of winning that series. So I'll need
You
to step up.
you're not tempted to take the full T100 contract and go at that series hard.
If I was offered one at the end of this year, then yeah, I could definitely be tempted to take that. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. You heard it here first. Here we go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I would definitely target the T100 next year if offered a contract. But I would also include the 70.3 World Champs. I mean, that's a huge focus of mine and has been for the last 5 or 6 years. And yeah, I would keep that on the schedule for sure.
what's your opinion of the two entities sort of working together? I mean, no, they don't work together, but what is your opinion of the two entities and how they rub up against each other and how they exist against each other and race schedules and dropping races right next to each other? For example, we got Ibiza this weekend. We had the Ironman World Championships last weekend. What's your take on all that?
Yeah, I mean, I know the two entities probably don't get along too well, but I think it's incredible for the sport. It's incredible for professional athletes in the sport, and I'm just grateful to be a part of the sport when we have all this, exposure and financial opportunity. And so, yeah, I think it's really great for the sport. It's great for the athletes in the sport. And we just get, yeah, opportunity to race almost every weekend. So for us, like if you love racing, then this is great for you. You have so many chances. But yeah, having so many races as part of the T100 series, and then you've got five as part of the Pro Series. Um, they've got to put the races somewhere, and of course, it's going to be an overlap or a close race at some point. It's good that there's not being one on the same weekend yet, but it's probably a matter of time next year when more races come onto the calendar for T100, and then yeah, different races for the Pro Series. So at some point there probably will be an overlap, but yeah, I just think it's incredible for the athletes. It provides us with yeah an opportunity to earn a lot more money, to earn some great sponsorship, and yeah, to just really put ourselves out there and get some exposure from not only the triathlon community, but from people outside of the triathlon community who just want to be a part of it.
Do you think that an athlete can race Nice as they did last weekend and roll up and have a solid performance in Ibiza the weekend after? Do you think that if you race your absolute best in Nice, which you're going to, do you think it's possible to race your best in Ibiza the week after?
No.
No.
No, to be honest, I think if you've really gone to the well last weekend in Nice, which I'm sure everybody did because it's a world championship,
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think it's possible to recover and have a great race in Ibiza. I mean, there will definitely be people like who do both, and it's possible to have maybe a good race in Ibiza, but I don't think anyone will be shining in Ibiza after having raced Nice last weekend. I mean, not only the toll it's taken on their bodies, but also the travel and then the emotional toll as well that a world championship takes on the body as well. So yeah, I don't think it's possible.
So you know what my next question is going to be, don't you? Before we rack things up, who are your picks on the men's and women's for Ibiza next weekend?
Um, Definitely Annie Haug for the women. She has a point to prove, and she will be racing with fury
Yeah,
in
yeah, I
Ibiza and
can
more
imagine.
after what happened last weekend. For the men, to be honest, I don't know who's going to take it on the men's side. I would like to see Martin Van Riel have a great race.
Yeah, he's a good lad, isn't he?
Uh, yeah, he's great, and I was hoping Kyle Smith would really take that top step this time, but he's just pulled out a couple
He's
days
out of the
ago. So
race.
yeah, so the men's race will be exciting, but as will the women's. But yeah, I think Annie Howe's gonna take the women's race, but I don't want to bet against my fellow Aussie Ash Gentle, who I also hope to see right up there.
Yeah, yeah. I'd like on the men's side, I'd like to see again, I echo your my desire to see Martin Van Riel win, but I'd like to see Daniel Beckergaard on the podium again because seeing
Yeah,
him succeed makes me happy.
yeah, me too. And he had a bit of a rough trot, but now he seems to have sorted everything out and he's on the up again. So yeah, I would like to see him put all of that behind him and yeah, see him on the podium too.
Absolutely. Right. Well, if anybody's looking to follow your journey into the 70.3 Worlds as we descend into winter up here in Europe and it just gets sunnier and sunnier for you guys down there, where can they find you online, Ellie?
The best place to find me is on Instagram, just Ellie Salthouse. I try and keep it as updated as possible with lots of fun things. So that's probably the best place to follow along.
Cool. Well, I hope you have an amazing race in the 70.3 Worlds and I hope the lead up goes really, really well. I appreciate you coming to join us and having a chat about Nice. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you very much.
And we're back. James, great. Well done. I'm glad that you got to have a conversation
Best
with
interview
Ellie.
you've ever heard, no?
Of course, mate. Every time. Every time.
Yeah,
Like it's
every
just
time.
uh I just wanted to, I mean, like I said, I didn't really get the chance to follow the race too much. I'm aware of the results. I was definitely watching and checking the tracker and things like that. And I mean, the thing that I want to talk about a little bit with you just briefly before we move on to some other things is just around the way the race unfolded. Because I suppose the one thing that really stood out to me, I mean, firstly, Laura Philipp, what a performance. What a deserving world champion. I mean, I'm
How
so happy.
wrong were we when we put her in our, what was it? She was fourth for you and fifth for me
I
or
think she
something, or
was
maybe the other way around.
I think she was three for me. I had Annie, Lucy, Ann, Laura. So
Did you?
theoretically, I
Oh.
suppose I was right when you pull out the other two didn't start or finish. Uh, no, I always saw it for me. It was a race of three. It was Laura, Ann, and Lucy. So I was, I guess, not surprised. But I think the thing that a few things for me, and again, I don't want to just go straight to the negative, but I can't help but admit that the second that Lucy Charles pulled out, the day before the race, my interest in the race dropped a lot. And then when I saw Anne Haug withdrew very early, I mean, why they don't have some level of pro support at a World Championship fucking baffles me. But uh,
Yeah, I mean, I said this in the interview. Her tire must have blown up or
it
something. It
did,
must
yeah.
have been,
The tire was ruptured. Like she would need a new
yeah.
tire, not even an inner tube. So, but I can't help but like my interest really, like I just went, well, what's, and that to me, and I guess don't want to focus on that part. It's more about this race to me really highlighted something. And again, I think that the women, again, wonderful race, every performance, well deserved, all that great stuff. But I really do feel like there is a difference between the depth of field we're seeing at Ironman racing and middle and short course racing. Because I think women's triathlon at the moment is possibly the strongest it's ever been. Like we have so many amazing women. Like that, I'm often more excited about a T100 race, the women's race, than the men's race because of the depth and because of the competitiveness and how close things are. I mean, you put in a tail in there, but maybe it changes things a bit. But like we see just so many great athletes. But then I look at Ironman, and this isn't a world championship thing. This is the pro series. This is a lot of Ironmans. There just doesn't seem to be that depth, and I'm wondering what it is. I am wondering if it is the fact that with so many alternatives to long distance, a lot of the female pros don't want to do it. They don't like to do it, or they're like, I just, I don't, yeah. I mean, the fact that we saw such big gaps between the top 10 in Nice compared to Kona or, the men's race in Nice last year. Yeah, I don't know. It's just this one thing that I'm not sure about, and I don't know what it is. And it does make me a little bit like, is there interest in Ironman racing? Is it because it was Nice? Is it going to be the same thing in Kona next year or not? Or, I mean, what's your perspective on that?
I mean, I discussed this with Ellie in the interview, and she said it was more a symptom of this course, she thought, the
Okay.
gaps that we saw in this field. Um, and she talked about her own journey with Ironman and how if you'd asked her 2 years ago, she would never have said she was going to do an Ironman because she enjoyed 70.3 and the T100 distance so much. But now with the creation of the Pro Series, it's drawing her to want to go and race a full Ironman. So we're probably going to see her race one, not next year, but maybe the year after. Um, so I think when you look at it from that perspective, you're probably going to see. I think we're going to see more women drawn to do the longer distance than less. And I think we'll see the fields get stronger.
Cool.
Um, but as I think I'll echo Ellie's thoughts really is that this course creates those kind of gaps, and also we didn't see much splitting up in the swim, and a lot of it was done on the bike, and then kind of on tired legs coming onto a run course like that is flat fast. It wasn't a hot day, thankfully. It was comfortable t-shirt weather. That's all I
Mhm.
can say.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people, their legs having pushed quite hard on the bike, their legs then felt it on the run.
I also know there's been a lot of discussion about motorbikes, and this is
Mm.
more me, to be honest, has been in our WhatsApp group. And I know that, talking with Joe and, this motorbike discussion is becoming, it's a constant sort of thing. And I feel like, one of the things we're very vocal about and advocating for on this show, and I believe other shows do as well, is this idea that we need motorbikes. If we want these races to be broadcast, we need the bikes on course. Problem is the bikes on course always assist that first group, which means if you're not a front pack swimmer, you're sort of, you're gonna have a hard day. And I think it was actually interesting to see, people with different interests in the race. Some people had interest or had a interest in an athlete at the front of the race was like, oh, it's great to see no motorbikes on course, compared to people that have athletes further back in the race going, I can't believe the motorbike's on course. And what is the solution here? And again, WhatsApp group's been wonderful. I did like they were talking about the Jan Frodeno comment to Sam Long, when Sam was sort of complaining about the motorbikes and said, well, why don't you join us at the front and see what it's like, improve your swim, Sam Long. Like there's a solution. But to me, I think the simple solution to this is that they just need, if they're going to have motorbikes on course with cameras, then have more of them and have it so that if you're in the front group and you're having the motorbikes filming the race, the next, like they just need to have more bikes with cameras because even if it is an indirect consequence of it, it sort of still evens out the field a little bit, if that makes sense. To me, that's not a bad thing. More motorbikes, more cameras, more options to show things. We see so much of the front of these races. It would be good anyway to start seeing the race, what's happening further back. That
Yeah.
to me is the
And
sort
just
of obvious way to
responsible
fix it.
bike riding as well. You
Yeah.
know, think maybe don't be out front on the shallower climbs, be alongside, be behind. Give the riders some room to ride their own race and not even feel like there needs to be any doubt about whether they were getting any draft or not.
But yeah, look, again, brilliant race. New world champion, Laura Philipp, absolutely dominated. Uh, some really, some other really great performances. I talked about Marjolaine Pierre, being a sort of wild card one to watch. I think I was
She
sort of
did fucking well, mate.
proven right with that assessment. Great to see Chelsea Sodaro actually, get a podium again. I know that I sort of counted her out a little bit. Um, I think I expected her to probably run stronger, but still back on the podium, fantastic. Defender, former Ironman World Champion. Kat Matthews did the work early so that when she's walking, she still has a sizable gap to still hold on to second place. But the one that I really, really want to shout out, and just because it made me so fucking happy for her, was Nikki Bartlett, fifth place at an Ironman World Championships. Nikki is just one of the best athletes on the circuit. She's just a truly wonderful person. So
Yeah,
I
great,
know,
great, great to see.
yeah, really, I think she's actually, if I'm correct, the first pro you ever interviewed when you started doing this podcast with me many,
Yeah,
many years ago was Nikki.
yeah.
So that truly filled my heart with joy to see Nikki get that top five finish. Anyway, let's move it on, mate, because the triathlon calendar does not stop. And this weekend, we have a little race happening in Ibiza, T100 Ibiza. What are your thoughts, mate? Have you made your picks? I actually really liked the way that we went through and gave our top five last week. Do you want to maybe discuss the race that way a little bit, or do you want to have again, it's T100, right? Like it's
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you got the men's race starting at 8 o'clock on Saturday, women's race at 10:30 on Saturday.
same day.
Um,
Okay.
it's a fairly stacked field. Almost all of the women's contracted athletes were racing, less so on the men's side, with a few wild cards to fill up the spaces. I think it's worth pointing out that on the men's side,
What are
two
you doing here?
seconds.
What's happening? What's the
I'm looking for Gomez. Isn't Gomez racing?
I'm assuming so, but he's also. Oh, that's worth actually. That
He's not
Javier
on the
Gomez.
start list.
Javier Gomez announced his retirement this week.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah,
Javier Gomez has announced he's retiring at the end of the season, and so this race, I was reliably informed he's on the start list. He's just not on the PTO website here. But it's going to be him and Ali Brownlee having their sort of swan song of races together. So that's going to be quite exciting. Um, have I done my picks? Yeah, I believe I have, mate. Have you done yours?
I haven't, but look, I think that there's some athletes that are worth sort of talking about, and I'm trying to bring up the start list so I can make some on the fly. Um, the athlete that I really, 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 really want to see race this weekend out of curiosity, and also just because I'm a big fan, is Taylor Spivey making her long distance debut. Uh, I think that I was pretty vocal about my expectations for Sophie Colwell when she did the same thing in T100 London, and I may have learnt my lesson a little bit, so I may not go out on a limb and just straight up pick uh, Taylor Spivey for the win. The other one is Flora Duffy. So we have Flora
Fair
Duffy,
enough.
who is stepping up to middle distance as well. I've seen a lot of the PTO media they've put out this week talking about how Flora's focus has shifted. So she is actually really all in on, middle slash T100 distance now, which is exciting. But I mean, to me, there's one name that shines above all others that I'm just expecting a complete domination from is Taylor Knibb. Like I just can't look past Taylor Knibb. I think it's going to be pretty. Yeah, look, I'm not expecting anybody to really sort of mess with that too much. And I also think you got some athletes who have a bit of a bone to pick with triathlon this weekend, like an Anne Haug, for example, after what happened
Yeah.
in Nice last
It's
week.
Ellie's pick for this race is Anne Haug on the women's side.
She did win last year, right? She won it in real style last year. So I wouldn't be surprised. I just think that Taylor Knibb is Taylor Knibb at the moment, and I just like she's so much stronger than the rest of them on like so much stronger than the rest of them on the bike that yeah, like I just don't know how much the others can run the day. If Ash Gentle can't run her down, I can't see Anne Haug running her down either. So yeah,
Yeah.
it is. But there's a lot, mate. There's a lot. So I'm literally making my picks on the fly. Because the other thing, you've got you've got obviously Taylor Knibb in the swim. You can have Taylor Spive in the swim, Flora Duffy in the swim, India Lee in that swim. Uh, Sarah Perez Sala is also in that swim. So that swim pack is going to be fire, and then Taylor's just going to probably ride away from them, and there's going to be some that don't come with them.
Yeah,
Uh,
because Taylor's had a fair amount of time as well now. She's not like she hasn't raced too recently.
so I've got my women's picks. If you want to start going through them, if you like, who have you got picked for
Yeah,
fifth
yeah.
place?
Do you just want fifth place? I've put Emma Pallant Brown.
Oh, mate, that's actually a really good pick. I didn't do that. Straight away, I'm like, I've made an error. Who did I pick in fifth? In fifth place for me, I have put, sorry, I just had it. I've gone Paula Finlay.
Okay. Yeah.
I think
On her
that,
day, definitely up there.
again, I think that we've seen her recently performing at the World Time Trial Championships, doing really, really well. She had that dominant performance at that Challenge Beijing a couple of weeks ago. So I think that I could see her very much in fifth place. So that's my pick for fifth. Who's your pick?
Fourth place, I put Anne Haug.
I've gone Flora Duffy.
Okay.
Again,
Yeah, interesting.
I just think
Kind of
that
untested at this distance.
oh, actually not untested to be honest. She's done a fair few middle distance races, but she's never really had the performance that I think we
Yeah,
expect. Like
maybe that's more what I mean,
yeah,
is we haven't seen her shine at this distance yet.
I think that's a fair assessment. I think that if the focus has really shifted. I mean, we saw her at the start of the Olympics, right? How
She
she
says it's
was,
shifted now.
but you just think about the way that women's Olympic race started, where she was so far ahead for so long. So you put her in a similar situation here where she's going to have company. I think we could see, her really sort of go with a pack, and it's just a case of how's the run. So that's why I've got her in fourth. Who's your third?
Third place, Ash Gentle.
I got Anne Haug. I think we're
Okay.
probably going to have similar. Just I've switched. Yeah, I just think Anne Haug is just going to have too big a gap to make up, and I expect Ash to be further up the road from Anne. So that I
Yeah.
feel like that they're going to get on the bike, and those three will probably stay in the same order. My top three will probably stay in the same order for the run. They'll pass others, but I don't think they'll pass each other.
Yeah. And just to clarify, Lucy Charles-Barclay has confirmed she's not racing this
Correct.
race
Yeah.
by pulling out her niece. What's your second place? You can go first this time.
Ash Gentle,
Fair enough. Mine was India Lee.
mate. I love your commitment. I really do. I know that India again, I'm a huge India Lee fan. I think that we know she had a bad race and it's a bad day. I just think the fatigue she still finished the race. Did you know did she finish?
No.
Okay.
Fresh legs, mate. Fresh legs. She hasn't got a marathon in her legs.
Okay. Maybe that changes
You
things.
can, we had a quick text message exchange a couple of days ago, and there was a reason for feeling confident about this race. So she
Oh,
hasn't got a marathon in her legs
you got
following
some
Nice.
inside scoop, have you? I don't. Yeah, I really I expected very different race for India. Like the second she was so far back out of the swim, I thought it's not a good day. So yeah, I think that's it. Okay, that information certainly changes things for me, but doesn't change my order. I just think Ash is going to be the best of the rest. I think that my first place pick, Taylor Knibb, is going to be miles up the road. So I've picked Taylor for the win.
Yeah, so have I. So
Uh,
have I, mate.
in the men's race, it's interesting because there's been a few little withdrawals. We know Carl Smith is not going to be racing. We've still got a few, there's a few other big names that aren't there. We've got no Magnus Ditlev. You said you're right. I can't see Javier Gomez on the start list.
Yeah,
So,
it's weird because he is in all the media I've read. They're going banging on and on about his last race with Alistair Brownlee and all that. It may not be his last, but his last since his latest since retirement. But I cannot see him on this T100 start list. So whether or not he's there, I don't know. But irrespective of that, he wouldn't trouble my top five, I don't think.
Me neither. And then there's like so we saw Sam Laidlow had that really great race in London, but I question where he's at in terms of
So who's
I,
your fifth?
I haven't actually picked it. That's why I'm stalling. I'm trying to
Oh, have you
pick them
not?
as I'm trying
Oh,
to
you're
pick them as we go.
stalling. Okay.
I am just yeah, I wonder where he is. I think that he is probably in his build for Kona, so I don't think we're going to see that same sharpness we saw in London. Could be wrong. Uh, but I think that we might see him either not finish the race or a bit ways back and sort of treat this as a bit of a training day for Kona.
For Kona.
I've picked. Okay, do you want my fifth?
All right. Fifth place is mine is Yuri Kulin.
Mine is Mathis Magerier.
Oh, there you go. He was almost in my top five. He was like a toss up between, it was actually genuinely a toss up between him and Yuri.
Haven't seen him for a while. I just feel like he's sort of
No.
been probably quiet, gone in monk mode, getting ready for this race. He could absolutely fire. So I guess for me, it's a bit of a curiosity pick. Let's see, put in there and see what happens. So yeah, my fifth place is Mathis Magerier, and I just like to say that name. So
Fourth place is Sam Laidlow for me.
I've gone Daniel Beckergaard.
Have you? Interesting.
I think he's going to be further up on your list because I think
Yeah,
at
I
this
think so.
point I know your picks a little bit. I normally have
I
a rough
just
idea who you pick.
we'll talk about that, my rationale for that when we get there. But yeah, fourth place is a good shout for Daniel. I think it means he's coming off London where he got his podium, and I think there'll be a fire in his belly.
I just think that again, any of these Ironman Kona athletes, I assume Daniel's doing Kona. He did Ironman West Australia at the end of last year to qualify. Uh, I just think that they're all going to be in a different phase. So I'm not expecting basically anybody who's going to be racing Kona, I'm not putting them I haven't picked them for all three of my guys who I picked for the first, second, third aren't racing Kona. That's just been my mindset a
I've
little
got a
bit.
feeling we'll have matching first places, but
Yeah, I think so. I think
my
there's
third place is Ali Brownlee.
wow. Wow, that is a wild call, mate. And I think a stupid call to be honest.
We're gonna see him podium at some point
No, we're
in
not.
one of these.
I've given up. No, look, I joke. It is always a valid pick to put Alistair Brownlee on a podium. He deserves it just by default for who he is and what he's done. I just don't buy it. I just don't see it. I think that there's still too many question marks over where is that in terms of whatever's going on with him. I don't know. But again, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Let's put it that
Who is
way.
your third place then?
My third place is Yuri Kulin. Uh,
Okay, yeah.
I think he's going to be up there or thereabouts. I saw that they have changed the penalties at T100 to give 1 minute penalties for drafting rather than 5 minutes. And apparently this could be because they're actually planning on giving one out. Although I don't think you can make it 15 minutes if you like. It doesn't matter if you don't enforce it. But again, I just think that he is a guy who has a bit of a reputation for sitting a little too close. And if there is a word that they're going to be a bit more liberal with the penalties, he may be a bit more cautious. And I think that could lead to just a change in the dynamic. I also just don't think he's going to be able to. He's a great runner, but I think there's better runner in this field who I've picked to win the race. So I think we're probably going
Second
to have the top. I
place.
think we might have the same top two, to be honest. I have a sneaking suspicion we have the same. Oh no, we can't because you got Daniel
We
Beckergaard.
can't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Second place for me is Daniel Beckergaard. I think he's going to come out of London. He's got a fire in his belly. He's on the upswing. He had a bit of a low patch for a while, and I'm expecting him to come into this race with some fury.
You've lost the faith, James Bale. You've lost the faith, and it disappoints me because my second place pick is our boy, Rico Bogan. I can't believe you.
Yeah,
I can't
look.
believe you ditched him, mate. You're a fair weather fan. Where have you gone?
Rico's the man.
He's the man.
Rico's the man, and he can win any fucking race he wants whenever he fucking wants. It's just his call, basically.
I think that challenge Samarkand race he had where he was third to Christian Gustav to me shows me that he is, he the fact that he's first off the bike with those two racing shows me he's going to be right up there. And again, I think that also that San Francisco race where he ran shoulder to shoulder with them, Martin Van Riel and Kyle Smith. Yeah, to me, he's second place. That's where I'm very comfortable. In fact, I'm going to make him my hot pick. No, I'm not. I'm going to make my winner because I'm so sure that Martin Van Riel is going to win this thing. Martin's my pick for the win.
Yeah, same. Martin Van Riel is
I mean,
gonna win
you,
this.
it's
He
the
is
chosen
the
one.
yeah, he's the chosen one for this distance, and further and further and further, he's the man.
So there we go. That's our picks. Again, the WhatsApp group will be going off during that one. There is also WTCS Y High, but we are, it's a huge week for podcasts, and I don't want this to be a 2 hour podcast. I'm sure that we'll do a bit of a recap
Yeah,
about it next week.
WTCS High opportunity to see Hayden and Alex go at each other again. So
I
go
just
watch it.
think, yeah, I haven't even looked at the start list to be honest. I know that Hayden and Alex are on there. A few like I know Tyler's not racing, I know Henry's not racing, I know Max is. So it'll be interesting to see. But I don't really have much to say about it other than I think Alex, if his mind is in it, because I know that after London he was talking about some of the struggles post Paris. I think that if we see things go the way they normally do, Alex will beat Hayden in the women's race. I don't even know who's racing the women's field, but based on recent form, it's probably going to be Cassandra or a Beth or a uh, um, Georgia Taylor Brown, who's coming to form at Super League. So looking forward to seeing it. I'll definitely watch it. I think I've really enjoyed the World Triathlon events this year. Uh, and I think the commentary is not great, but the broadcast is. But that seems to be an Ironman, a triathlon thing in general. But I think that's pretty much us done this week, mate. If people want to find out more, where do they need to go?
If you want to support the show, jump on at patreon.com/talking triathlon. If you want to follow Tim, he's at T14 on Insta, and I'm at Bale.James on Instagram. Find us across all social networks with the exception of Twitter. We're at Talking Triathlon on Instagram. And if you join us in the Patreon group, you'll get access to the monthly bonus episode and the social group and the aforementioned WhatsApp group, which is never-ending source of entertainment for me.
It certainly is. We are going to record that bonus episode next week. We're going to go into the nitty-gritty of my marathon because I've had a lot of people asking. That's where we're going to do that. We'll probably talk a bit about your race plans. We'll talk more in depth about all the races that have happened. It's actually going to be really good to do it next week because there's so much we can actually really get our teeth stuck into. But again, patreon.com/talking triathlon. Give us your picks for T100 on our YouTube video this week. Don't write essays. Just don't. We don't. Just
give
don't.
us. I like it when people give a shit though. That's
I don't
fine.
mind. I don't mind a bit of that, but like literally, I don't need like 12 paragraphs about why I was wrong about saying that Cat Matthews has raced too much this year. Like I just, I can't be bothered. But yeah, YouTube's a great place to give us comments and things like that. So, Jimbo, a pleasure as always. Thank you for doing the interview with Ellie this week. We'll be back next week.
Cheerio.